Hello there, Lee. It's Andrew here. So today I'll be reading through your essays and giving you some general pointers on the construction of good writing, as well as giving you some grammatical corrections by reading through sentence by sentence. So in these task ones, as we've stated before, the most important thing is that we describe the graph incredibly accurately. So in the first sentence, where we give the general overview of the graph, really it's a paraphrasing of the description that's already given to us on the exam sheet. So this is slightly inadequate because it's actually the proportion of different calories. When the graph displays a proportion or the percentages, we need to make sure that we include that information in the intro. So the given bar chart displays the proportion of total calories sourced from 3 different food groups by men or by UK men of 3 different age groups. Oh no, it's 4 food groups, sorry. 4 food groups by UK men of 3 different age groups. So then I would expect us to give a general overview. I would say something along the lines of, overall, it is clear that each age group has a strong preference for different food groups. Males aged 0 to 24 prefer dairy products with representing 40% of consumption. Men aged 25 to 49 consume meat as a majority of their caloric intake, with 50%, whereas men over the age of 50 majoritively consume pulses at 60% of their diet. So then we've given a general overview of the most interesting part of the graph. What is it that it displays most? So let's then go into your sentences, which then go into the detail, which should come next. So general overview, a description of the graph, and then a general overview of the data, and then go into detail. So the intake of meat, pulses and vegetables, plural, for men aged between 0 and 24 years, are approximately 20% each, while dairy products take up the vast majority with 40% of consumption. Very good overall. So here, I would say I wouldn't use all though. I would say the quantity of pulses and dairy consumed by men between the ages of 25 to 49 almost halved, whereas the consumption of meat peaked at 50% of consumption during this phase of life. Vegetables reduced, the consumption or the intake of vegetables reduced slightly to around 15%. The proportion of calories taken up by meat dropped to 20% for men aged 50 and over. So what happened to the consumption of dairy and vegetables for this age group? Because we've talked here about the fact that the consumption of meat dropped for the over 50s. Did dairy and vegetables also drop, or did they remain the same? I know that vegetables did, because I would say that one of the trends we can point out in this graph is that the consumption of vegetables decreases with age. Each age group consumes incrementally less or incrementally fewer vegetables, going from 20% to 15 to 10. So the consumption of vegetables decreases with age. But what happened to dairy in the middle group? I think we need to include that information maybe. A glance at the graph, there's only one graph, that reveals that the largest source of calories during any life period is pulses, with 60% of consumption for the over 50s. We must remember to state which group it applies to. So this is actually very, very similar to what I would have put here, the general description. And then at the end, I would have put a description of the trends. I would have then put overall, the consumption of vegetables decreases with age. Meat experiences a peak in middle age, whereas dairy dairy also decreases with age. Meat goes up in the middle, dairy goes down, vegetables goes down. So the discussion of trends is the discussion of what happens to data over time. And the discussion of trends is necessary for Band 8 scoring. A good description of the data is necessary for Band 7. A good description of the data plus a description of trends is necessary for Band 8. And I always recommend that people go for Band 8 just to make sure that even if you mess up a little bit in the exam, you can still land on the Band 7. So my next recommendation for the intros of these essays, the three things that must be included in an intro is the discussion of the contention. So what are the two things that people do not agree with? And the introduction of your opinion, as well as a brief outline of the ideas that you will include here. And that's best introduced with a due to phrase. So let's have a look. I would personally here say whether copyright laws or whether copyright regulations limit creativity or encourage it is much discussed. I firmly believe that society functions better with copyright laws. And then what are we talking about? So the protection from theft. So really, we're talking about the protection from theft. So I firmly believe that society functions better with such rules due to the protection from theft that they offer. And then we can just go straight into the body paragraphs and talk about exactly what you're talking about. So the introduction of a paragraph should be a general introduction of the idea that you will discuss. So we're introducing the idea of theft here. So I'd say, firstly, it must be acknowledged that original creations can easily be stolen in this digital age. So we're talking about the fact that given the prevalence of digital technology and the internet, online creations can be easily stolen. And then next I would expand with how this relates back to the essay and say something like, for this reason, it is important to offer protection for people who choose to create original works. and then use the example. For example, singers and songwriters who are victims of theft lose great sums of money. In such cases, copyright law mitigates this risk. Mitigates means reduces the risk of. Therefore, despite the claims that copyright rules restricts creativity, I believe it brings more benefits than drawbacks. And then here I would use furthermore. The existence of the internet means that any creation can be obtained in a matter of seconds. Let's say there are numerous hackers who are willing to break into a smartphone or computer and steal digital creations without leaving clues. Here we should have an example to support our argument as well. Shall we? You could even use Edward Snowden stealing all those CIA files, or Julian Assange releasing all those state secrets. Personally, I'm in favour of those people, but we need an example here to support the idea that there are hackers out there who will steal your stuff. And we can say, thus, digital theft still exists even with copyright regulations. And so, the enforcement of these must be improved. We don't need these quotation marks around some of your... Steal is a real word, so we don't need to inverted commas it. Post-it is a real phrase, so we don't need to inverted commas it. Also, we don't use contractions in academic writing. These are to make speech smoother, but they are not used in writing. So, to conclude, in your conclusion, we should summarize all of the ideas that you have given. So to conclude, the prevalence of online theft in the modern world means that copyright law is more necessary than ever. I hold that copyright regulations make society improve the copyright rules, improve the functioning of society by protecting creative people from theft. And then we have a consistent viewpoint all the way through. So the general pointers: intro, 3 things, a discussion of the contention, your opinion, as well as a brief outline of the ideas that you will present. And then when we present the ideas, they must be introduced, expanded upon, supported with an example, and then explained. Again, second idea, introduced, expanded, supported, explained, and then to conclude, give your opinion again with a summary of the ideas that you presented as reasoning. Doing all that perfectly would get you a band 8 or above, but we assume that people going into the exam will be a bit nervous, will forget a few things, and will mess up a little bit. So always aim for a band 8, and then hopefully you will leave with a 7. So once again, Lee, get these over. I will get through them again, and let's see where we can get you. All the best, pal. Best of luck. Speak soon.